Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tiska Chopra, your host for today. First off, I'd like to thank Mr. Khemka, Mr. Evans, Mr. Mandela, and Mr. Afanasiev for sharing this platform with the world and bringing it to India. It's heartening to see the kind of impact that the Global Citizen Initiative has had across the world and the impact that it can have on the future. As this movement now makes its way to India, several leading lights of the country have pledged their support to it in their own unique ways. One such individual is not only an actor par excellence, but also a humanitarian who has championed many social causes. He's particularly passionate about youth-directed change. He shares an extremely unique association with the Global Education and Leadership Foundation. And to tell you more about it, please welcome on stage Mr. Aamir Khan.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to be part of this movement. I think that what Gandhiji said is so true, that be the change that you want to see. And I think that each one of us can at least change yourself. And that itself is such a big force in changing the world. I think a bulk of India's population is youth today, and the youth in India is full of energy, full of love, full of positivity. And I think there is huge potential for all of us to be in this together, to bring about this change. I pledge my commitment to this movement, and I'll be a part of it until we actually do achieve all the goals that we have set out to. Thank you so much. Thank you.
चर्चे बंद होंगे क्योंकि शुरुआत हूं मैं।
Shuruaat Hu Main, as you saw that AV, was shot by one of the most respected individuals in this country, Mr. Aamir Khan. I would like to thank him on behalf of our foundation and Global Citizen India for doing that. And I have the deep honor of introducing one of the living legends, one of India's finest ambassadors to the world, Shri Amitabh Bachchan, to come on stage and take this forward.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Fadnavis ji, Honorable Poonam ji, distinguished guests, members of my fraternity, members of the media. I'd like to thank today's organizers, the Global Citizen, for inviting me here today and making me a part of this wonderful and very noble movement. A lot of what the movement stands for has already been described by the speakers before me, and members of my fraternity have lent its support to it. Before I go any further, I'd just like to commit myself yet again towards this very noble cause and say that Mr. Khemka mentioned about opening up the lines for registering this morning at 9 o'clock and took a figure of about 40,000 people. I want to tell you, Mr. Khemka, that amongst those 40,000, I was one of them in this morning. I did go to the section which said action, and I went there, but it didn't tell me what to do. So if you can just advise me what I need to do to be able to win those social currency points so I can have a free ticket to the show, I shall be more than happy to do that. There were many aspects of global citizenship that have been described as far as the journey of this wonderful concept is concerned. And some of them were about focusing on quality education gender equality, clean water and sanitation. I just want to inform some of our guests here that the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Chief Minister have already initiated a great deal towards these very noble causes, and I just feel very privileged to be a part of them as far as Swachh Bharat campaign is concerned, the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign is concerned, and the presence of education amongst our younger generation. The speaker before me talked a lot about youth and how they need to be inspired and how they're going to be leading the country forward. I take strong exception to that because, you know, some of the oldies can also do some work. And if any time you will require my services, I shall be more than happy to be a part of that. Talking about education, I keep repeating an incident, and I want to say that again today. As host of KBC, I had a young girl of almost 23 years old sitting on the hot seat in front of me, and she came from the rural area, from a very poor environment, and she said that she was stopped from being educated at the age of, 12, 13, when she was studying in the 7th or 8th standard, and her father said, "We're not going to educate you anymore because the people and the village have told me we don't want to waste more money on your education because you're going to get married and go away, and why should I waste money on you?" The girl revolted against this process and this thinking. She left the home of her parents, went to her grandmother's house. She was treated equally badly there, asked to do all kinds of menial work, but she continued to study on her own and has educated herself to come and land up in the hot seat in front of me. Ladies and gentlemen, during the course of the game, she won 25 lakh rupees. And when I asked her what she was going to do with this, she said, "I'm going to take this check to my father and tell her that her daughter is also an asset to the family." We are a nation that are very proud of our women. We have a huge cultural backlog, and we are fast changing that. Why should the woman, the wife, walk 10 steps behind the husband? There are many reasons why we need to change all that. 50% of the strength of a nation should be women, and they need their dignity, their presence, and their honor in our society, and that's what we need to work for. We've talked about health issues in this global citizen. The Honorable Chief Minister and I have been working towards the eradication of tuberculosis. I personally worked for the polio campaign for 8 years as United Nations ambassador, and after 8 years of very strong struggle, we were able to make India polio-free. We will continue. We shall continue to work in that direction because even though India is today polio-free, we know that some of our neighbors still carry that virus, and there's always the threat of that virus following through. There's a lot of emphasis on wanting personal involvement in all these campaigns. It's all very well for all of us to come and speak wonderful words and say a lot of nice things, but how are we going to actually execute this? And I think that when we come to execution, each one of us, each member, each individual has to individually take part and become an example for the rest of the community. When I worked for the TB campaign and I worked for the hepatitis campaign, I gave my personal example, and I'm not afraid or shy to admit that I'm a TB survivor. I'm a hepatitis B survivor, I hope to keep surviving. But the reason why I said that was because I wanted to become an example for those cases. And if and when we can make examples of our youth in this most wonderful movement called the global citizenship, that is how we can take this movement forward. So therefore, I must urge each individual. We've talked a lot with the Chief Minister on Swachh Bharat, and what I told him and some of the many people that we recently went to, that if each one of us individually can keep, say, 10 yards of the circumference of where we live clean and neat, the entire city would be clean. And that's something that we all need to do. We all need to work individually and make sure that such occasions are not just occasions where we come and make some wonderful speeches, but go out please start working. I have already talked about my initiation, so Mr. Khemka, you need to tell me now, what I need to do as far as my action is concerned, and I shall be most ready to do that. Once again, thank you so much for having me here, and I reiterate my commitment to this wonderful cause and any other action that I need to do to gain those social currency points for the show on the 19th of November. Thank you very much.